Good evening once again. We will continue on classifications of penalties and duration of penalties so that you may have an idea what are the penalties provided by law or provided by the revised penal code. Under Article 25, the penalties are scaled. The penalties are the following. And you also may read this in the internet, or if you have soft copy of the revised penal code, I suggest you download a soft copy of the revised penal code. It will not take much of the memory of your phone. So the classification of penalties under Article 25 are the capital punishment, which is death. The afflictive penalties. The afflictive penalties are those penalties for grave offenses. And these are reclusion perpetua, reclusion temporal. Now, these penalties which are there are penalties which has accessory penalties. And I will not. Yes, sure. We will just discuss a few of the accessory penalty. Na penalty nga prison na po'y accessory penalty. Like, if you are convicted and you are sentenced, or if the accused is convicted and the accused was sentenced to reclusion perpetua, there may be accessory penalty of perpetual or temporary absolute disqualification. That means that kung nakonvikto siya og reclusion perpetua, di na siya pwede kadagan sa o balik for election of public office. So that's absolute disqualification. As we will later on deal with that separately for simplicity. Now, afflictive penalties, reclusion perpetua, reclusion temporal, prison mayor. Correctional penalties are prison correctional, arresto mayor, suspension, destierro. Now, what do you mean by destierro? Destierro means you cannot go within a certain area or place. You are prohibited for going a certain place, or you are prohibited from going out from a certain place. That's destierro. Gilimitahan ang imuhang movement. You are still free, but your movement is limited. Light penalties are arresto minor and public censure. Penalties common to the preceding classes are fine and bond to keep the peace. Now, accessory penalties, perpetual or temporary disqualification, absolute disqualification, perpetual or temporary special disqualification, and so others. You may read that on your own. Now, those are accessory penalty. If you will have that penalties, if for example reclusion perpetua, you have also the accessory penalty of perpetual or temporary absolute disqualification, and we will deal with that separately. We will discuss that. Of course, we will discuss that separately. And then lastly, we will talk about duration of penalties. Kung sa may mga pila man ni kadugayon ang mga penalties nato sa ato ang Pilipinas sa gihatag sa revised penal code. Now, this is penalties, or these are penalties provided for by the revised penal code. Naapoy penalties nga gihatag sa special penal laws. That special penal laws are penal laws enacted by Congress after the codification of this revised penal code. Now, going back to the duration of penalties. Ang reclusion perpetua the penalty of reclusion perpetua shall be from 20 years and 1 day to 40 years. That's reclusion perpetua. That is the penalty for rape. That is the penalty for murder. Now, because that is not imposed anymore, so if the rape is qualified and the death is the imposable penalty, then the penalty will be reclusion perpetua. That's the basic, or that's the elementary, or the usual penalty of rape or murder, reclusion perpetua. Now, going to reclusion temporal. Reclusion temporal has the duration of 12 years and 1 day to 20 years. Reclusion temporal, that is the usual penalty for homicide. And you will later on learn the difference between homicide and murder. And that is easy. You just go to the specific circumstances. Ang homicide mangod is killing, intentional killing without the circumstances provided for in murder. So that's the basic distinction between homicide and murder. Again, reclusion temporal has the duration of 12 years and 1 day to 20 years. Prisión mayor. Prisión mayor and temporary disqualification. That's accessory penalty. Prisión mayor has the duration of 6 years and 1 day to 12 years. That's prisión mayor. Prisión correccional, suspension and destierro. The duration of penalties of prisión correccional, suspension, and destierro shall be 6 months and 1 day to 6 years. Prisión correccional. Arresto mayor. Ang arresto mayor is 1 month and 1 day to 6 months. These are the usual penalty for physical injuries. Could be less serious physical injuries or serious physical injuries. Yeah, that's the usual penalty. You may later on find out in the provisions of Book 2 of the Revised Penal Code. Arresto menor. The duration of penalty of arresto menor shall be from 1 day to 30 days. That's the usual punishment or penalty for light offenses like slight physical injury, unjust vexation, light threats, probably right threats, I'm not sure, but light felonies are punished by arresto menor. That's 1 day to 30 days. Now, you may have encountered the term probation. I will add. Now, the probationable offense, kanang mo ana ka nga, ang kaso sa MTC is maka-apply na mag-probation. So, we will talk about it quickly. Probation is a privilege given to person convicted of a crime with the penalty of less than 6 years. Yeah, 6 years. Now, what are the penalties which prescribe less than 6 years? Prisión correccional is a penalty less than 6 years. That's 6 months and 1 day to 6 years. If you will think about it, 6 years or less, the probationable penalty, 6 years or less. So mula pa og 6 years, di nakaka-probation. And second, if naka-probation ka sa una, dili na pud ka-apply og probation. So most of the cases in MTC or Metropolitan Trial Court, Municipal Trial Court, or municipal trial court in cities, ang ilang penalty is 6 years or less. Mula na ilang jurisdiction. So, most of the crime or most of the penalty to be imposed, most or all of the penalties, or yeah, most of the penalties imposed by the first level court or the MTCs is probationable. So that's the essence of probation. Kanang instead nga ma-detain ka, mo serve ka sa probation. Probation is a series of activities conducted by probation office, probation and parole office. So instead nga ma-detain ka sa sulod, mag-serve ka sa probation na may mga activities. And then pagka ma-terminate imong probation as if you are free, a free man. And with, I don't, I'm not sure about that, but the effects of probation will cleanse or ma-clean imuhang past records. I will see about that again to be sure. But I think that's the essence of probation, to be reintegrated into the society, kanang mga gagmay lang og sala. So that's it for scale or duration of penalties, the classification of penalties. At least na may idea: reclusion perpetual, reclusion temporal, prison mayor, prison correctional, arresto mayor, arresto minor, distierro. If we will have time, we will discuss on accessory penalties, katong i-impose ka kanang wala siya naadaan kung hatagan ka og penalty o reclusion temporal or reclusion perpetua, naa na pud na siya. What I mean is that if the person is convicted and sentenced to reclusion perpetua, dili na siya kadagan because there is absolute or temporary disqualification to run public office. So, mo na siya yung mga effects sa imposition of penalties. Again, if we will have time, we will discuss that. If not, you can research that on the net or on your own time. We will see again on next topic, but we will not be discussing each article from 1 to 100 because there are some provisions which are just reading materials and you can read it by yourself. I will just pick out subjects that is important or that may be important in your field, and you maybe use that when you will be a police officer. That's it for tonight, and we will see each other again soon. Make sure to comment your name and your section for your attendance. Be safe.